So my name is McLean Donnelly. I'm the Vice President of User Experience at Shutterstock. Previously, just a little bit about my background, so I have some credibility on the topic of human-centered design. Started off as an information architect with Target Corporation. I worked specifically on store-to-digital consumer experiences, bringing those together. I then worked at Expedia as a lead designer, worked on in-destination and trip planning experiences, and along the way, I got a Master's of Business Administration, which is a whole nother topic, and I'm currently working on my Master's of Strategic Design from Parsons here in New York. So hopefully I have something to contribute to this conversation. Right now, as I said, I'm the Vice President of User Experience for Shutterstock. Shutterstock is a global technology company that provides imagery, footage, music for creative agencies, media companies, small businesses. The scale is, right now we have 1.7 million active customers. We have 5.5 images downloaded every second. We are in 20, soon to be 21 languages, and 70% of our revenue comes from outside North America. And that is a great deal of success, and we're very proud of it. But what I'm going to say to you here is what I said this morning at a meeting at Shutterstock. What got us here isn't going to get us to where we need to go. And I said that same thing to Target, and I've said the same thing to Expedia. The ground that we are working under is moving, and it is moving fast. And I'm going to unpack that statement just for a little bit before we get into human-centered design. When the internet first started, it was incredibly difficult to build technology. There was no open source movement. It was really hard to find people who could do it. The programming languages were very sophisticated. And by and large, companies could succeed by merely getting their product to market. That was all it took to have success. And think about it. They called their customers users. I mean, they aren't drug addicts. Like, these are customers. And because it was technology, they didn't have a human, intimate relationship with their customers. They became a data point, a KPI, someone you didn't have to interact with. And those days have changed. Today alone, 10,000 websites will be created. This week, 1,000 apps will be built in the App Store. And now, first to market ain't gonna cut it. And so today's consumers have greater expectations than what they did 5 years ago. Your website, your product, your service can't just be usable. Your product, your website, your service can't just have a good-looking UI. It doesn't work anymore. I'm a millennial, I'm going to say it. You have to have a connection, a human emotional relationship with your customers in order to compete and thrive in today's economy. And what does that mean? We call this philosophy human-centered design. But I want to say, I almost want to pull the word design out of it, because human-centered design isn't Post-its. It's not a whiteboarding session, although I love doing that, and it's not hiring UX designers. That is not what human-centered design is. What human-centered design is a philosophy. And it is a philosophy that says that the connections that you form between you and your customers and your technology are holistic. And my dad rolls his eyes when I tell him this, but this thing is an extension of my life. And that is true. And I think Simon Sinek said it really well. Like, people aren't getting Dell tattooed on their arms right now. People get Harley Davidson tattooed on their arm. Like, they have that enduring commitment with those brands and with those services. This is an extension of my life, and it's almost a spiritual connection that has been forming. And so that's the philosophy that we need to adopt, and it is hard to think that way. Because what it requires, it is an enduring commitment to long-term thinking. It is an enduring commitment to quality, and it is an enduring commitment to delivering emotional experiences. And that is really hard for established companies to wrap their minds around. I will say this, and we're going to get into like how we can kind of jumpstart this thinking. But when you apply this thinking to your company, you are going to understand immediately what your customer needs are, and over time, you will build the muscles to anticipate what they want. I'm going to talk a little bit about the best ways I know how to jumpstart this thinking with clients, within your own company, with anyone you might be working with. We're going to go through the tenets of what this thinking is in quick tactical ways that you can go back to where your customer, your organization, and help jumpstart this sort of thinking. It all starts with finding that emotional connection. You aren't going to do anything unless you figure out what these core values are, and these aren't company values. These are the values that you want to resonate with your customers when they're using your product or your service. And when you identify these core emotional values, then your strategy, your roadmaps, your execution will all fall into place. I'm going to talk briefly about how I did this at Expedia. Expedia is a wonderful company, but it was we had a transactional relationship with our customers. We did not connect with them beyond purchasing of airline tickets or hotels, and that wasn't going to cut it moving forward. And we had a way of thinking about them, again, as a data point, as a KPI, and we need to shift the way people were thinking about our customers. So it was a little awkward, but I brought in lawyers, accountants, designers, engineers. We got together in a room for a day. I got the printer all warmed up, cartridges ready to go, and we went through a creative and visual exercise to help find out what these emotional connection points were with our customers. So we started with our customers. We know they started at Expedia 48 to 60 days out of their trip, right? That's what we all do. We start to think, oh yeah, I'm going to go to New York. This is the general time. And I said, what do you want the customer to feel at that point in time? Not what are we selling to them, what do we want them to do, what are the emotions that they should feel at that point in time? And people started to, and I said, print out a visual representation of what that is. And people started to put down, I want to feel informed. You know, I want to feel confident. I want to feel like I have all the things I need. And we went in little groups and everyone printed it out and mapped them up. And you know what? You could start to see, I want to feel informed as a real value that you wanted to resonate with the customers. We said, great. What's the next step in the customer journey? Well, we got to buy the thing. All right. E-commerce business, I want to pay off my student loans. It's part of the deal. All right, let's do it. And so we said, when you are buying the thing, what do you want to feel? Well, I want to feel like trustworthy. Like I want to feel like it's transparent, that there aren't fees, that you aren't putting anything under the rug. Those are the things I want to feel. So people went back, and they came back with images of honesty, of transparency, of clearness. And we mapped that up against where the customer is at. And then we said, well, now you're in trip. What do you want to feel? And that's where we could get to the rainbows and the unicorns. That's when people said, I want to feel inspired. I want to go dancing. I want to know what it's like to go to the top of the Empire State Building. And at that point, we could start to determine that's the emotional connection that we want to feel. And that was kind of our aha moment for that group, was to say, to move beyond that transactional relationship, we needed to get in the in-destination experience business. And so that's really what helped drive our strategy of pushing in-destination activities within Expedia. This is a great first exercise to kind of break down the thinking and start to formulate those core emotional values. Once you have that in place, you got to solve problems. And we say this, and everyone says it, and we've read a million Medium articles about solving customer problems, but nobody's doing it right. How many times are you actually spending company resources on solving customer problems? Really? Or how many times are you just saying you're solving a problem, but you're really just selling something that they may or may not want? And I'm telling you, I have an MBA, I've studied all this stuff. If you solve your customer problems, they're going to solve your business problems. But it takes intense commitment to the long term, because at times when you solve customer problems, they aren't going to generate immediate revenue. That is a fact. And so it's easy to go back to those quick, short-term wins that pump up your revenue, but that's not going to cut it in the long run. It'll catch up to you. And I'm telling you, when you invest in solving customer problems, you're investing in creating value in your company. And when you create long-term value in your company, we can monetize that. That is something we can work with. And I think people, though, and I struggle with this too, is like, well, how do I figure out what my customer problems are? Is it user testing? What is it? And I'm going to be totally honest with you. This is something that we do religiously at Shutterstock. Our founder, CEO, John Oringer, does this better than anyone. I spend time every single day. I think the best way to get a clear and candid conversation with your customers is go talk to them through your social media channels, one-on-one. It is a protected environment where they're going to let you know what they're feeling. And that is the best way to have that conversation with your customers. Nothing against usability labs, nothing against focus groups, but this is actually an asset that you can use to better understand exactly where the pain points are in your experience and where you're falling short. Go on to, and they'll let you have it. Go on there, have a conversation, and just as you did with your emotional journey, over time, you're going to find out you're seeing the same problems over and over again. They're going to start to clump together. And what you're going to find after that is they stack up pretty nicely against where your emotional values are. And when that happens, your emotional value, your customer problem, that's where breakthroughs happen. That's where value happens. And at that point, you're going to start to figure out solutions of, oh, we should start doing X, Y, and Z to meet in the middle of these two. Every good company then is going to start to build features, build products, build services that connect emotionally and are solving user problems. That's part of what we do. We build things, right? We're builders. You're just getting started. You're just getting started. Far too often, we start to build things and then we get in our bubble and we stop talking to consumers at that point. Or we talk to them well after we put something out. And that's not going to cut it. And again, nothing against focus groups, nothing against usability labs. It's an important part of the creative process. It's an important part of what we need to do. But I will take a pizza and a cold beverage of your choice, having a conversation with your user any day of the week. That's the best way you're going to see how they connect with your product. You're going to see emotionally what their reaction is. You're going to be able to talk to them, ask them. Get out of the office and have conversations one-on-one with your customers. And do it continuously. I think this is the kind of new wrinkle I'd add to the human-centered design conversation. There are a lot of companies and services saying the same thing, doing the same thing. And to get a customer from an existing product to what you're doing is a lot harder than it used to be. And just putting out great brand work, great UI, a great product still isn't enough. Every company, to really win, needs to have a signature experience. something that is exclusively known to their product and their service. And I would challenge most companies to say, you don't have one. And what is it going to be? What's a good example of a signature experience? This is what people ask me. I think Warby Parker has a profound signature experience that they created. Previously, you would have to go into Lens Crafters, go into a store, try on your glasses, take a picture, send it to someone. They'd send an emoji back. It was kind of an awkward experience, and you didn't feel comfortable. And what they did was said, no, we can personalize this and create that human connection. So they went through, and they thought through a lot of profound, complicated logic and reasoning of how to get glasses from A to B without you even knowing it. You got glasses sent to your home. You open the box. And then the privacy of your home or with your friends, you're able to put on these glasses for the first time and see yourself a little differently than you did before. That is a profound signature experience that did not exist anywhere else. Other companies were selling eyeglasses, fact. But no one else was selling that human emotional experience. And now they're getting rewarded for it. There is no silver bullet in finding your signature experience. I'm sorry. I can't show a slide for that. But what I can say is that it's a muscle that you can build. And the best way I've determined of how to understand what it is, cross-functional teams doing a North Star design exercise. That's the best way I can do it. And these conversations start with, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And you commit time, resources, people to flushing out those ideas of wouldn't it be cool to do this. And at that point, if you have your emotional values, if you're solving problems, if you're talking to your users, and if you do this, you're going to start to figure out a couple things that you can do. It's really hard to do, but you're going to find a couple signature experiences that didn't exist previously. I'm going to just briefly talk through a couple case studies that I think companies that are doing it great. So when you go back, you can start to think, okay, maybe we can replicate what folks have done here. I think Venmo is a terrific example of a company that started off with human-centered design thinking. The peer-to-peer payment experience 6 years ago was awful. It was awful. It was like changing my 401k. Like it was not a good experience whatsoever. It was awkward. You'd feel weird about it. You felt uncomfortable about it. And so they did exactly what we're talking about. They went out and they said, well, what emotions do we want people to feel? What problems are we going to solve within it? And what Venmo was able to do was, one, people wanted it on mobile devices. They wanted it frictionless. They didn't want fees. Again, long-term thinking. They avoided the fees at the beginning, long-term thinking. And they created a frictionless peer-to-peer experience that made you feel like you weren't like going through Edward Jones accounting or anything like that. But what they did for their signature experience was they socialized something that was formerly very closed off. Like, people don't like talking about how they're spending their money. Like, who likes to do that? That sounds crazy. But now I was sending a dinner check to my friend, and it was beer emojis, wine, cheeseburgers. Our friends were commenting on it. This is now an extension of my lifestyle. That's true. 90% of all transactions are now public to everyone. 75% have an emoji. And I went dancing once. I added the emoji. It was really fun. It's a delightful experience. So they completely inverted the pain points and the feelings that people had. And this quarter alone, $6 billion were transacted through Venmo. $6 billion. So this isn't pie in the sky design talk. This is hardcore economics, making businesses profitable. My mom is also, she's a golf coach. That's her profession. And we were talking about this, and I think she actually made a really good point. She's like, well, people have been doing this for a long time. She's like, it sounds like you tech people are just starting to figure it out. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, Callaway Golf did this. I was like, what are you talking about, Mom? And she said, no, they like 15 years ago, they went out and no one was playing golf. And they said, well, why isn't it working? They said, it's too hard. The clubs are too small. I'd like to play, but it's too hard. And so they said, oh, well, people want to do this. They want to have a good outdoor experience, but it's a little too hard. So they went back and they came up with this idea, the Big Bertha. It's a nice big club head. You can hit it easily. It goes further. It reduces the margin of error. And you know what? People started to like to play golf because they made it a little bit easier. And the actual interesting wrinkle that I found out on this was originally the professional golfers said, oh, we don't want this big thing. That's no good. And then when the Big Bertha came out, all the pros started using it too. And it became their signature product. And so I think that's kind of just a little story of innovation. And you can start with one customer segment. When we start to solve their needs, you're solving holistic needs as well. Real quick on Shutterstock. Today, we were looking at what our customers were doing. They were downloading 5.5 images a second. 90% of them were pulling these images out of our platform and editing it. They were editing it, they're adding a filter, and they're putting it out into social media, advertising, whatever their creative endeavor was. And we said, well, we think we can help them solve that problem. Like, there's no need they need to drag this out there. And we said, we think we can solve that problem because even for our creative professionals, but particularly for non-creative professionals, everyone wants to feel a little bit creative, right? And so we were able to build this tool, Shutterstock Editor, where people could quickly edit, crop, and change their content and immediately put it into the social channel or wherever they wanted. And so it's long-term thinking. That is creating long-term value for the company, solving a customer problem, and making an emotional connection where everyone wants to feel a little bit creative. The next step was they said, this is great, but I want to go one step deeper. I want templates. I want the ability to crop it. And we said, oh, we know where you're going with this. So we build presentations, stunning sales decks that they could create. And this is the type of thinking that we've started to bring in to our Shutterstock platform. I'm going to wrap it up, and then we've got about 8 minutes for Q&A. You can shout at me or come visit in the front, either way. So if I had to leave you with a couple things to jumpstart human-centered design within your organizations or with your clients, get cross-functional. This can't be design. This can't just be a creative exercise or it's not going to work. Get out of the office. Talk to your customers. Get to know them intimately. You got to go through the emotional collage journey. If you don't do it, it's not going to happen. It's going to feel really awkward. But trust me, commit to it. Do it. Cross-functional. It's going to set you up for success. Find the pebble in their shoe. You got to do that. And then go build the North Star. Go find your signature experience. And I'm telling you, if you do that, you're setting your company up, you're setting your organization up for long-term success, both culturally and financially. So thank you. Here are a couple, I think this is my little starter kit for human-centered design. These are some awesome books that I would recommend. They're quick reads. And these are a few people on Twitter I think have something really adding to this conversation.